Hello, good evening. Ian Danter here on the talkSPORT Darts YouTube channel. Laura Turner, PDC Professional, alongside me here for night 10 of the Premier League Darts. The setting is the AO Arena in Manchester. We're over the halfway stage here on the talkSPORT Darts YouTube channel, and the table is very much dominated by one man, Luke Littler, who has the chance tonight to make a little bit of history since this new format was introduced by winning 5 nights out of the 17. It's not been done before since this new format with 8 players was introduced a few years back. And Luke Littler will be up a little bit later. We've got 4 quarterfinals, indeed all 7 matches will be live here on the talkSPORT Darts YouTube channel. Give us a like and subscribe, tell your mates, and join in the fun. We are exclusively here with our watch-alongs tonight on the Darts YouTube channel, whilst there's live sport going on talkSPORT and talkSPORT 2. Laura, evening to you. Nice to have you back with us. So, Luke Littler had a bit of a break at the weekend, but did come back for the Players' Championship events in the week. But whilst he's been away, some of the others have shown some really good form, notably Stephen Bunting and Gerwyn Price.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you know, you've got to think, was that the catalyst that Stephen Bunting needed? You know, we've been talking for weeks and weeks, hasn't picked up any points, hasn't had any wins in the Premier League, then goes and wins a whole evening. And I just think, you know, that's maybe just turned around his fortunes in 2025, because he was despondent, he was really struggling, and I'm really pleased to see him lift not just that title, but the one in reset. Yeah,
for those who aren't aware, the International Darts Open took place over the weekend, and Bunty got the job done against Nathan Aspinall, who made the final. Of course, Nathan won the previous Euro Tour event and looked in good form. And then Gerwyn Price won the second of the Players' Championship events that were held on Monday and Tuesday of this week in Leicester. Remember, those are the tournaments where there are no supporters. It's pretty brutal on-the-floor tournament. Cameron Menzies won on Monday to continue his good year in 2025. But Gezi was averaging 100 across all 7 games when he won. Very, very impressive and consistent form from Gezi.
Yeah, and he's been that player that we've spoken about on several occasions that perhaps has had those massive stats, those big averages, but hasn't actually converted them into wins or titles. And this year, that's what he's managing to do. I think it's the 3rd title he's picked up on the Pro Tour. Obviously, he's had nightly wins in the Premier League as well. He's just one of a handful of people, you know, up to Bunting winning last week. It was only 3 of them that had picked up weekly titles: Luke Littler, Luke Humphries and Gerwyn Price. So again, he's just another player that's really standing out, and he's just had another really good couple of weeks.
Must ask you, Laura, about the sort of elephant in the room with regard to professional darts at the moment, and that scheduling and how players actually mark out their year. Luke Humphries was very candid on the stage in research, thinking about how motivated he felt, which he did row back on after a lot of outcry on social media. I felt for Luke because he was on a hiding to nothing. But Rob Cross opted out of reset and the Players' Championship events early this week. We had Michael cricking his neck whilst changing shirts, so he couldn't play in Berlin last week. There's an awful lot being said at the moment. What's your view on all of this?
Yeah, I mean, Michael, obviously, that's a bit of an outlier in terms of race to pick up an injury. But yeah, absolutely, I think it's something that we've discussed in commentary quite a lot. We look at other sports, we look at tennis, we look at golf, we look at where there is that pressure and a lot of tournaments available to people and how they manage their diary. They have it set out quite early on in the year. And darts, where there's so much of it, especially for the players in the Premier League, I do think they do have to manage their diary as well as possible. I think, you know, for Luke to come out and talk, I think it's quite honest. You know, he's come out, he's obviously mentioned the way it affects you as a person, as a player. If you're not motivated in darts, it's the same with any sport, but if you're not motivated, you haven't got a team to fall back on. You can't be carried over the line by other people. It's just you up there on that oche. You need that level of motivation. And if you're getting burnt out, then you have to address it.
Actually, you could probably go back to Gerwyn Price on this, because he's never really had a low point, Gerwyn, but the least highest point would have been the whole ear defenders thing at Ali Pali when he was taking on the crowd. But when you look at how motivated he looks this year compared to last, that's all a dart player needs to look at. You know, he's managing his schedule better. Luke Littler's definitely managing his schedule to give himself those breaks. So, you know, there's some good to come out of this. I must ask you, the PDPA and the PDC, we should stress at this point that their holistic care for players is really good, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're there, if you need that additional help, that additional support, then absolutely, they are there to help the players. That, especially the PDPA, that is what they're there for. They are, just to support the players. So there are lines, that people can talk to. There are channels of support available to players as well, and ones that I would implore, players that if they are finding it difficult to reach out and speak to them. But yeah, it's definitely becoming more of a thing. And you mentioned Luke Littler and his management this year, especially compared to last. I remember him going out to these European tours straight off the back of a Premier League night and being absolutely exhausted. It's not always the most straightforward place to get to. It could be 1, 2, 3 flights and connections and trains, and by the time you get there, you can't play your best start. So it's about looking after yourself to make sure that you get your best out of yourself at the very right time.
We are here on the talkSPORT Darts YouTube channel, getting prepared for the first match of the night. We're bringing you all 7 of the matches here at the AO Arena in Manchester. The first up will be Chris Dobey against Michael van Gerwen. We mentioned that MVG had to opt out of Berlin last week. Yeah, he was changing shirts backstage in readiness for his quarter-final and did his neck in. So he did come back at the start of this week for the Players' Championship events, but went out early both days, both Monday and Tuesday, and his averages weren't great. I don't know whether it's like a residual thing from the neck injury, or it could be something just playing on his mind, perhaps, that he wasn't playing that well.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think with Michael as well, I mean, he's always been that player. Obviously, you never write off Michael van Gerwen. We know the levels, we've seen what he can do, but in terms of the Premier League in itself, he's been a runner-up on one occasion. They've all been semi-finals, quarter-finals, hasn't picked up a title. This time last year, he would have picked up 3 after 4 weeks, so for him, I don't know, the season's perhaps not going quite so well, but you mentioned the weekend. I think he lost to Rhys Griffin with an 89, Mike Kruivenhoven with a 95. They're just not the levels that you're used to seeing from him. So as you say, could be a bit of an injury still kind of niggling in the background. It could just be something he's going through.
Well, I don't know what you think, but I mean, Chris Mason, who's part of our team, has made note of the Van Gerwen throw, and it's the way that he's altered over the year and the way he holds the dart pre-throw and the snap of the wrist. He thinks it's fundamentally different, and that is a big pointer to why there's been that perceived drop-off in consistency.
Yeah, and I do think with players, throws do evolve, and you do sometimes have to adjust. I've noticed it with players who perhaps picked up injuries where they have then got to throw ever so slightly different to allow for the fact that, it probably hurts them to do it in the same way. As long as you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're repeating yourself, and it's with a positive outcome. That's kind of the whole thing with darts. It's repetition. But yeah, I have to agree with Chris. That ever so slight change, it's actually could be quite big, and we're not seeing the kind of 2016, 2017, 2018 levels that we're used to seeing from Michael van Gerwen.
Chris Dobey is up against MVG first up, and Chris reached the final in Belfast on night 1, hasn't reached the final since. He's second bottom in the table. Let me remind you of the standings as we go into tonight's matches. Littler top of the tree on 26 points with 4 nightly wins. Luke Humphries on 26 points behind in second. He's won 2 nights. Gerwyn Price also with 2 nightly wins on 15 points in third. MVG hanging on to 4th place on 13 points. Rob Cross, who's another player who opted out of the weekend in Risa and the 2 Players' Championship events just to recalibrate. He's on 12 points. Nathan Aspinall on 10. Dobey, as I mentioned, is on 7. Bunting still bottom, but on 5 points from his win last week in Berlin. What of Chris Dobey then? Because, since reaching the final in Belfast, he's struggled a little bit to get deep into these Premier League nights.
Yeah, absolutely, just picked up a couple of wins. Other than that, they've all been early exits for Chris Dobey, and it doesn't get much easier with Michael van Gerwen. Between the pair of them, the last 4 have gone the way of Michael van Gerwen in terms of their meetings, including that World Cup semi-final, World Championship semi-final as well. So, yeah, for me, Chris has been one of those players that we've waxed lyrical about. We expect big things from. He's so good and so consistent on the floor, and just hasn't been able to kind of find that on the stage on a regular basis. I do think it's coming to that point now. We're in week 10. We've obviously mentioned about Bunting, but also Chris Dobey, not that many points ahead of Stephen Bunting. This is the week for me that it's going to be quite crucial they start picking up points and perhaps pushing for some titles themselves.
Maybe Chris will sense that with MVG having struggled with injury, that he's a wounded animal and can be got at. That's the first match on tonight, and then Nathan Aspinall against Rob Cross. Second up, Paul Nicholson will join us for that one. Littler against Price is third up, and this strange statistic that Luke, who's sweeping all before him, can't see off Gerwyn Price. 6 defeats in a row against the Iceman. That's weird, isn't it?
He's the only person I think that's got a positive head-to-head against Luke Littler. It's 7-4, but like you say, 6 consecutive matches. That's some going for any player against, at this kind of level. It was interesting because when Gerwyn Price beat him recently, he said, I want to get another win, I want to get another one, because this is not a trend that's going to keep on happening. And I do have to agree with him. I don't know what it is. You do get bogey players in darts, but yeah, I think obviously for Luke, he's going to want to get his revenge, and he wants to do it tonight.
He wants to do it on his home patch because Warrington's not far from the AO Arena in Manchester, and Luke Littler did win the equivalent night in Manchester last year on his way to becoming Premier League champion at his first time of asking. Stephen Bunting against Luke Humphries is the final quarter-final, and yeah, Bunting magnificent, following up the night in Berlin, staying in Germany, getting the job done in Riese. You'd have to have a heart of stone not to be happy for Bunting.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's celebrated a milestone birthday as well recently.
40, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to the 40s club, Steve.
I can't remember it.
For me, I think it's, like you say, you have to have a heart of stone if you're not happy for him, because he has struggled and he has spoken openly about it. So hopefully it's that catalyst. And you just think, I was looking at the head-to-heads, and against Humphries, beat him twice, but within the space of about 2 days, because he beat him in Riese, and then he beat him on the way to the title for the Premier League.
And it was a good win he got, wasn't it? He got a 6-1 against Humphries, I think, if I remember rightly. But Luke has got 8 ton-plus averages in the Premier League so far this year across the previous 9 nights. It's going to be a great contest, that, between Bunty and Humphries. So the winner of Dobey and MVG will take on the winner of Aspinall Cross, and then the winner of Littler and Price will take on the winner of Bunting against Humphries. And we are gearing up for the first of those quarterfinals, which is Chris Dobey against MVG. Remember, this is a non-ranking tournament, so it's all about prize money. There are no points up for grabs to get you up the various tables on the order of merit or the Pro Tour order of merit. But it's really interesting, just before we get into this first quarter, how it's all shaping up. Of course, we'll all be in Blackpool for the match play in July that talkSPORT 2 will be a massive part of towards the end of July. So much jostling for position for those final 16 places to join the top 16 in the world. And, well, there's players who are Blackpool regulars I can think of, like Christoph Ratajski, Michael Smith, who may not make it, Laura.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Honestly, I still think there's going to be some more jostling for position, but at the moment, as it stands, there are a few that are quite surprised that they're not in the match play as yet.
But Cameron Menzies is definitely going to be there. He won on day one in Leicester this week for Players Championship 11, and he's top of the Pro Tour order of merit. Cameron thinking about quitting his job to pick up darts full time. Maybe talk about the merits of that as we go through the evening. But you can hear behind me John McDonald, the PDC's Master of Ceremonies, whipping up the crowd. And what better to whip up the crowd still further than a bit of PJ and Duncan, because Chris Dobey's ready at the end of his walkway to head to the stage to get the first quarter-final underway against mighty Michael van Gerwen. And as you would expect, in the AO Arena in Manchester, there is barely a seat to be had. Mind-boggling as always, Laura, the number of people that turn up to watch these Premier League events. It's fantastic for the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had the privilege to go to some recently, and yeah, like you say, not an empty seat in the house, and that's how it should be.
Amazing stuff. Dobey just making his way up the stairs onto the stage, getting ready to take on MVG. He beat Littler in the quarterfinals last week, which was something of a surprise, so that might just give him a little bit of positivity. But more than anything, he'll be looking at Michael van Gerwen's recent travails with injury and thinking, maybe I can get at him tonight. But it is about TV camera performances where Chris needs to improve. We know what he's like in floor tournaments, Laura. Look at what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. just listening to the start of Michael Van Gerwen's walk-on song there. If you're that player on stage and you hear that, it's a bit like when Taylor's song used to drop.
Yeah, when you heard the lightning strike, the thunderclap. Suddenly, yeah, Taylor's on the way. Well, Nico will tell us all about that, I'm sure, about what that does to your psyche. But MVG is here. No doubt that he was going to play tonight. Looking very focused as he makes his way onto the stage. And yes, Seven Nation Army, as usual, elicits the sing-along from the punters in the AO Arena. A three-time world champion. Maybe not the force he once was. And I think back, Laura, to when we first started doing darts on the radio for the 2018 World Championship, which was when Rob Cross triumphed at Ali Pali in the end. And as we started our darts on the radio coverage, as well as darts on the tube, Phil Taylor had just hung up his darts, and everyone expected Michael to kind of move into that vacuum that had been created by Taylor's departure. But not so. And that's not to the detriment of Michael Van Gerwen. It's actually to the benefit and to the credit of the sheer volume of players who've upped their game in recent years.
Yeah, I don't ever think, I know, again, Gerwyn Price mentioned about the likes of Luke Littler becoming that one dominant force once again, but I genuinely don't think that we're ever going to see the likes of a dominance like Phil Taylor. I mean, obviously 16-time world champion. It's such a... In terms of sport at the moment, in terms of darts, I just don't think it's ever been in a better place in terms of the levels and the competitiveness. We try and predict, we look at stats and all the figures and the head-to-heads and everything else, but we're at a period where any result or any outcome is not necessarily a surprise anymore. And
you look at young players like Josh Rock, who went deep in the Players' Championship events. He took Gerwyn Price to a deciding leg with some brilliant darts in the week. Wessel Nijman of the Netherlands and another Dutchman, Jan van Veen. Darts has never been in a healthier spot. We are underway with Chris Dobey, having won the bull backstage, getting the honour. Remember, in all these matches, it is first to 6 legs from 5:01, and a steady 60 to start from Dobey. MVG, well, as you hear Hugh Ware call it, a 137 to get things going, so that's a nice steady start for MVG, who missed last week.
Yeah, and the one thing you will expect, say, from the likes of Chris Dobey, just taking a bit of time to settle in. He's a bigger 180, he's a big 180 hitter. That's where you get the best out of Dobey. If you can start finding them early enough, then you can really put the pressure on Michael Van Gerwen.
But MVG's just popped in a 140 after the 137, so down to 224 after 6 already, the green machine. And Dobey again a trebleless visit, so he's way behind on throw. He's a good half a dart behind, but then MVG drifts into the one and the treble one on the third visit and hands the initiative back to Hollywood.
Yeah, 137, 140, backs it up with just 23 points. And Chris Dobey, first in the treble, has to settle for a ton in the end, but it does put him on a finish. 154, plays Van Gerwen on 201.
MVG back in the red bit with the first visit. He'll be down to a finish. Went for the bullseye and hit single 10. So he's down to 111. Nelson. Dobey can't take out 154 with a single 3. 57 from treble 19, then went up to treble 18 and drifted into single 1. So Van Gerwen hits the treble 19 and then the 14 to leave himself tops, and a ton plus checkout gets Michael Van Gerwen underway with a break of throw.
Yeah, very well taken. It was looking like it could have been one of those legs, getting a bit scrappy, especially when it came to the setup play, but it was well executed in the end by Michael Van Gerwen, and you can hear the Manchester crowd getting behind him.
Well, no after effects from the neck injury. He's actually just cricking his neck on stage as he walks back, having hit 96 for his first throw of leg 2. So a 1-0 advantage already to MVG against the darts. And he's back in the red bit. Chance for a maximum. No, the third dart deflects above. But another 140 keeps the pressure on Dobey early on here.
Yeah, Dobey's finding himself very early on the back foot. And again, pulls it low, and this one above the 19, only 39 points, and has to settle for 58. It's another trebleless visit for Chris Dobey.
He's only averaging 77 at the moment. Dobey, and he does have the lowest average for the tournament of all 8 players. 94.7 from 13 matches played. That's a better first start from Dobey, but he can't match it with the second or the third. They both drop below the red bit. That's a tightening tricep muscle there, underpitched. Van Gerwen was on a 170 checkout, but a bit of a bag of nails from MVG. But Dobey's way back in a different postcode on 286.
Yeah, absolutely no pressure at the moment coming from Chris Dobey, but first one in the treble, backs it up with a second. Could this be the first max? It's 140 in the end, but does put Dobey on 146, Michael Van Gerwen 145.
Already had 1 plus 10 plus checkout, won't happen this time. He's got 100 left, and he's left himself on tops as Van Gerwen with a lovely visit. What can Dobey do with 146 here? Treble 20, he's actually gone 19s first. Another one of those. Oh, hits single 19. Would have been double 16 left if he found the treble. But tops again for Van Gerwen for a 2-love lead, and there it is. Hit same spot that he hit tops the first time in the first leg to break throw, and he's 2-0 up MVG.
Yeah, again, now all the pressure on Dobey. Does throw first, does find a treble 20 first start of asking, but has to switch as the second dart landed awkwardly.
Chris has only managed 1 ton plus average in the Premier League this season. That was in Brighton when he lost narrowly to Luke Littler in a 6-5 disbuster of a game. But he has struggled to find his form this season, having been one of the wild card picks from the PDC for the Premier League this year. So 2-0 Van Gerwen in a race to 6 on the talkSPORT Darts YouTube channel. 308 Dobey, 230 Van Gerwen, and Dobey's going for the 18s from 308. And he's only hit 1 and another messy visit from Hollywood.
Yeah, it's just the consistency in terms of the 3 darts in hand. He's finding the treble, but they're not backing it up and putting it low or throwing it high. It's Michael Van Gerwen now down to a finish first. 170 plays Chris Dobey on 230.
I mentioned Wessel Nijman, the young Dutchman. He actually did for Chris Dobey out in Riesa in the European Darts Trophy at the weekend. 170 Van Gerwen, he's on it again, but again it won't go. Single 20 and single 19 and single 17 as well. So Chris Dobey to hold throw wants 130. Only a 1 treble visit. If he hits treble 20 now, he leaves himself bullseye, just over the top. So he has to make do with the 60 and hand the initiative to Van Gerwen, Laura.
Yeah, by my recollection, Dobey hasn't had a double yet, and he is potentially going to get more. 82 scored by Michael Van Gerwen, 70 required for Chris Dobey.
Surely he'll get to a double from this. 18. Gives himself 20 for double 16. 1 dart at it, pins it, and that will do Chris Dobey the power of good. Holding throw, but Van Gerwen leads 2 legs to 1.
Yes, the kind of leg, even though it's a holder throw, it feels like a break because he really did survive another scare there by Michael Van Gerwen.
Well, he's a very happy-go-lucky guy, Chris Dobey, but gets rather down on himself at times. There's a picture of concentration up there, but a couple of errant darts in that visit at the start of leg 4, scoring just 40, whereas Van Gerwen, well, 3rd dart deflects away close to a maximum. Yet to see a 180 tonight. But Dobey back in the red bit, that's better. Now he just moves to the left of the oche slightly. Can he fill it up for our first max? No, he deflects wide as well.
Yeah, it's a really competitive match between the two in terms of the scoreline. There's not much in it, but these deflections and these pulled darts by Chris Dobey, they're proving really, really costly.
Yeah. Dobey's got his average up to closer to 85. It was at 77 when I last looked. Good 140 from Dobey, but not down to a finish. Quite Van Gerwen on throw, slightly behind, and a wayward visit there, just 54. You heard called by Hugh Ware, our referee. So Dobey's 20 points ahead, less these from 200. First dart under pitch, just under the treble 20 bid, but that's in. So can he get down to a 2-dart kill? He is. He's down to a ton left to level things up here at 2-2.
Yeah, all Michael can do now, back on 220. He's scored 40 points, does rescue it in the end with a treble 20. But it's Dobey here with 100 required to level it up at 2 apiece.
Will he go tops? He's hit single 20. He's gone tops. He's got one of them. And he's got the second. A break back with tops from Chris Dobey. Superbly done. And we're all square.
Yeah, and whilst I've mentioned a few times some of the scores have been a bit scrappy, the finishing, it's been a doubling masterclass. Neither player missing the outer ring as of yet. We've had 2 ton-plus checkouts.
Brilliant stuff from Chris Dobey. Lost to Snakebite Peter Wright in the Players' Championship floor event in the week. And we got to the round of 16. And here he is in the Premier League, trying to get himself up the table. Remember, he's second bottom in the standings on 7 points, 2 points ahead of Stephen Bunting, who plays later tonight against Luke Humphries in the 4th quarter-final.
Yeah, and I think the thing is as well, he would have seen Stephen Bunting win last week, really narrow the gap between 8th and 7th place, and now Dobey just trying to take advantage of Van Gerwen, who just came out the traps flying, but has gone off the boil in the last couple of legs.
2-2 in legs, and only 2 points in it after 6 darts apiece. Van Gerwen 2-4-8, Dobey 2-4-6, trying to get down to a finish, and treble 17's a big help for Dobey. So he's got a 1-5-6 checkout when he comes back. Van Gerwen 2-4-8, less these. Very much under pitch first up, but a lovely cover on treble 19. So he too is down to a finish of 1-5-2, but Dobey gets first dibs.
And the first one goes high, so all Chris Dobey can try and do, seek out a treble, can't find it. So if he does get to come back, 96 required, but it's MVG here with 152. And MVG first one goes low, so Dobey will be back for 96.
Well, potentially a 2-darter here for Hollywood. Treble 20, we leave double 18. But well under pitch with that first dart. He looks at the board quizzically. 76 left, treble 20, we leave double 8. But he's gone, double 19 for double 19. Having gone tops, that's our first missed dart at a double, Laura.
It is indeed, and it wasn't missed by much. It was a bit of a deflection, but it's double 8 here now for Michael Van Gerwen, and he takes out 70, leads again at 3 legs to 2, and it's another breaker throw.
So Van Gerwen goes back in front, and he'll have the darts now in leg 6 with a 3-2 advantage over Chris Dobey, but not a great start to leg number 6 for the Green Machine. Down to just 4-4-7, so Dobey, can he take advantage going down to the 19th and picking off 6 of those? Nicely done by Hollywood.
Yeah, took full advantage, Chris Dobey, but it's Michael Van Gerwen back in the treble, and again.
Still waiting for a max.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, still. They're scaring it, just not actually filling it all up.
He's beaten Dobey on both meetings in the Premier League this year, his MVG. Could be a max now from Dobey. No, that one deflects away. We're still waiting. Beat him 6-4 in Dublin on week 1 of the quarter-final, and then 6-1 in Cardiff. There's a maximum. Hello! MVG finally obliges the massive crowd of the AO Arena to get down to a 1-2-7 finish. But here comes Dobey. Oh, 140 from him, but he's down to a finish too. Tense.
Just feels like things are starting to hot up, and ball. Now, happy accident if Dobey can't convert 87, because he's pulled it in the tops to leave. Pulled it in the 10 to leave tops.
Yeah, it was way outside the inner ring. So 87 Dobey, 70 left. So 20 leaves bull. He's hit treble 20, double 5 for another break. Just over the top from Chris Dobey. So MVG's already pinned tops twice. Pins it again. Perfection once again from Michael Van Gerwen, and he's 2 away from the semi-finals. 4-2 lead.
Yeah, and a couple of costly darts for Chris Dobey. He's missed in leg 5 and in leg 6. Could be a completely different flip of this result, but it's 4-2, as you say, to Michael Van Gerwen.
Well, no ill effects for MVG. And he's in for his second maximum of the night, but the third dart just under pitch. No deflections there. Just the line was good, but the length was just a little short. So 140 gets leg 7 underway for Michael van Gerwen, and a treblers visit for Dobey. His body language is betraying him a little bit up there, Hollywood.
Yeah, absolutely, and there is another maximum, and again it goes the way of the green machine. Michael van Gerwen down to 181 after just 6 darts.
And this is against the throw of Chris Dobey, who again comes up dry with just a 60 visit. And MVG, oh, treble 20, 25 and a single 20 to leave himself on a finish of 76 to go 5-2 up. Dobey needs a 140 visit minimum, and he won't even get that. A ton scored, so he's not even down to a finish, Laura.
Yeah, Michael van Gerwen, 6 darts from here, may not need them. First one, treble 20, double 8 required, just outside, but comes inside, and there is 76, 5-2. Michael van Gerwen, 1 leg between him and another semi-final.
Well, looks like the rest has done him good. Even if he wasn't at his best in Leicester in the floor events on Monday and Tuesday, his average now is 97, and his average for the tournament is around about that. It's 98 for the tournament as a whole, MVG, and his checkout percentage is 31% for the tournament. So not quite where he'd want that to be, but he's been very good on the doubles tonight so far.
Yeah, very good, and some good combination finishes as well. The 111, the 70, the 76. He's been deadly with 3 darts in hand at that kind of range.
Dobey up against it, then 5-2 down. Has to be perfect from here on in and break the van Gerwen throw twice. Van Gerwen just needs 1 more leg to advance to the semi-finals, where he will play the winner of our next quarter, which is Nathan Aspinall against Rob Cross here on the talkSPORT Darts YouTube channel. You can always leave a comment on our talkSPORT Darts YouTube channel page. Keep them clean, keep them friendly. We don't bite. At least not usually.
Not always, no.
Not usually. Troublous visit for Michael. So Dobey's got a chance here against the darts. 210, this visit, but he drops into single 1. Single 20, he's got to find a treble to get down to a finish, and he picks off treble 19 to give himself just a ghost of a chance. He's down to the champagne finish of 132.
Michael back on 204, minus these, only can manage 58, so getting to that territory now for Chris Dobey, but you think these big shots are going to have to go.
Well, there's the first ball, another one would leave double 16 for the champagne finish, just wide of the double 16 bed, but he could take the leg if MVG can't pick off 146.
Finds the first treble 19, but pulls the next one into treble 7, so more chances here for Chris Dobey. Double 16 is the target, and
he pins that. It's the 3rd leg he's won. He's pinned double 16 twice, so he's still in the hunt, Chris Dobey, and he's back on throw, 5-3 down, and he could be in for his first maximum of the night, and there it is, right on cue.
Yeah, it was interesting to see his reaction after pinning that double 16. There wasn't really much of one. It was a bit like, keep going.
Yeah. There are some players who I worry about sometimes, who expand so much energy. I see it particularly at the World Championships, where, early on the adrenaline's coursing through their veins so much that by the time they get later into the game, the mental strength has dropped a little bit, even though it's not really physical strength that's dropped. But Ross Smith, I've found sometimes expands so much energy, getting so hyped up that it can be of a poor benefit to him later on.
Yeah, absolutely, it can be draining. I think another one that's in the Premier League is probably a Nathan Aspinall, who seems quite pumped up and he's always pacing along the stage, but it's maintaining those high levels. Yeah. Something you can't manufacture either. It's not something you can falsify sometimes.
No. And we've all heard the Gezi yelp at various points. Now 126 Dobey, another treble 19 leaves double 6 to get back within 1. He's done it. He's not over yet in this quarter-final. Chris Dobey pins a ton plus checkout beautifully on 126, but van Gerwen has the darts at the start of leg 10 and starts with a 140.
Yeah, that last dart just clattered into the 2 already in the treble 20 bed, and already pressure on Dobey. Good switch down, finds treble 19, but has to settle for 96.
Well, checkout percentage for Van Gerwen is 71%, which is quite brilliant. Dobey's isn't bad, 57%. When you think most darts players, you're normally happy with like 40%. That's where you'd be completely chipper, wouldn't it be?
If I could win a game, I'd be happy with 10%. I'm not fussy, but no, you're right, absolutely. These are excellent finishing stats from both.
Steady ton for MVG, so he's down to a finish to win the match of 1-2-1. Dobey, 2-7-1, starts on the 19s, it's a single, staying down there, another single, blocking the bed, but he still tries to find a treble 19 and ends up with just 57.
Could be costly with Michael Van Gerwen now looking at double 18.
Just to the north of double 18, but he'll be back for the match. 4.36 because Dobey is only on 2.14. How much pressure can he apply to Van Gerwen? Well, a 140 applies a certain amount of pressure, but for the match, for a 6-4 win, double 18 is pinned, and Michael Van Gerwen, who missed last week's night in Berlin altogether through injury, finds his way through to the quarterfinals with a checkout percentage of 62% on the outer ring to see Chris Dobey off by 6 legs to 4, Laura.
Yeah, it really was good. I think it was one of those matches, started off very strong for MVG, back came Chris Dobey, MVG ruled again, Chris came back, but it's MVG that came out on top in the end, and you could just see how much it meant to him at the end of the game, that roar, and as I say, I think that week off may have just done him some favours.
Well, MVG, remember, is in the top 4, but he's got 2 points guaranteed now to add to the 13 he's already got, so he's gone level with Gerwyn Price, and it's the 2 players who are directly beneath MVG in the standings who face off next in Rob Cross and Nathan Aspinall. Paul Nicholson will join Laura for that game here on the talkSPORT Darts YouTube channel, so stay with us for that here, and we'll bring you all 7 matches for watch-alongs live and free here on the talkSPORT Darts YouTube channel. And when it comes to the Darts Premier League, the last thing you want is an online mishap throwing you off your game, and that's where NordVPN's Threat Protection Pro steps up to the hockey. Just think of it as your personal referee, keeping dodgy websites, malware and phishing scams from sneaking into your setup. It even blocks those pesky ads so you won't get distracted mid-leg. Just go to nordvpn.com/dartsvpn and you'll get 2 years plus 4 months free and a birthday deal into the bargain. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Paul Nicholson and Laura Turner will bring you Aspinall Cross next here on the talkSPORT Darts YouTube channel.